Booby fishing. What flies do you need? What rig do you need? And how can you get the most out of this method in winter? That's what we're going to be talking about today. What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. I hope you're keeping safe and well. If you are a returning subscriber, it's great to see your face again. If you are new here, my name is Rhys and I make fly fishing videos and tutorials that will help you catch more fish. So if you'd like to learn more, please press that red subscribe button and smash that bell so that you don't miss out on future videos. Okay, winter booby fishing. So why is this a valid method for us in winter? I'm of the opinion that temperature and food source are the main key drivers for fish behaviour in winter. Now, it's no joke that fish become more lethargic in winter because they have such a low metabolism. Now, they are cold-blooded animals, they like cold water, but there becomes a balance where if it gets too cold, then they switch off. So think of it like this. Where is the largest food source at that time of year? Is it in the mid to top columns of water? No, it's on the lake bed. That's where you're going to find snails, you're going to find bloodworm, you're going to find shrimps, and that becomes staple parts of a trout's diet, particularly in winter. So that's where the food source is for a start. Okay, we've zoned that out. And then let's think about temperature. So is the water column at the lake bed warmer than it is at the top? Some days it can be, depending on the conditions. So if we have 3 days of hot sun, for example, and the temperatures get above freezing, say they get to 8-9 degrees, then that sun will have warmed the top layers of the water enough that it might bring the fish up. But we live in the UK, so let's be honest, the last month is a perfect example. We've seen some of the coldest days on record. So what that means is you've arrived at your fishery and the top layer of the lake is now frozen over because the temperatures are so cold. So what you'll find then is that the fish will sit deeper because they might only be maybe half a degree, 1-2 degrees warmer further down, but that is enough to keep those fish on that lake bed. So now that we've understood why the fish are sitting that low, how do we tackle up and rig up to target them? For me, in winter, booby fishing becomes a staple part. But I want to stress one key thing. Historically, booby fishing on a high D or a heavy sinking line is normally come with a stigma, and it does exist, but it's all dependent on the control of the angler, and that is deep hooking fish. So what used to happen was anglers would put a booby on, they would chuck it as far as they could on a heavy sinking line, leave it sink to the bottom and just leave it there. The fish would come along, and by the time the angler realised when he picked the rod up or was holding the rod and not keeping touch of the line, the fish would swallow the booby right down his throat and the fish had no chance, it was going to die. So what I'm trying to say is that A, only fish boobies if it's allowed at the fishery. B, if you are going to fish them, do not fish them static. You have to keep a consistent retrieve fishing these boobies in order to avoid deep hooking the fish. So now that we've had that lecture about fish safety, let's talk about the kit. You're going to want a 7-weight rod. For me, that's a Vision Stiller Maniac. It's strong enough in the butt section to work a fast action line, but it's also sensitive enough in the tip section to feel those subtle takes. The line I recommend you buy is an Airflow Booby Basher. Now the Booby Basher is an out and out die 8 40+. So that is a die 8 55-foot front head and then 95-foot of running line. Now Airflow do recommend that you cut this line down. If you're fishing a 7-weight rod, you want to cut it from a 55-foot head down to a 40-foot head. When you give this thing a cast, the line literally flies out of the rod rings. The reason why I'm recommending this line over others is that Airflow have arguably one of the best reputations for sinking lines, and this thing will get you down to the deck as quickly as possible. So leader wise, we're looking at fluorocarbon. For me, I tend to go either 8-pound or 10-pound, but some anglers will go heavier, even from 12 to 15. One of the things to remember with winter booby fishing is that the fish are shoaled up. So where you find one fish, you will find more. And it's not irregular to get a double hookup. Okay, and then moving on to leader length. So there are two options here. Option one, you are trying to hit the deck. That means getting that fly only a matter of feet right off of the lake bed. For that, you're going to go really short on your leader, anything from 2 foot to 5 foot. Now that is short, and some of you probably never fished a leader that short before and thinking, won't that spook the fish? Well, think of it like this. If your line is on the lake bed, the fish won't care. And all you've got is this booby propped maybe a foot or two off the lake bed sitting there inconspicuous by itself. It's exactly what the trout are looking for at that time of year. And then option 2, so this is more of a searching cast. So this will be 2 flies, and you're going to fish the first one at 5 foot and the second one at 10 foot. So that's a 15-foot cast altogether. Now I've gone specifically for a 15-foot leader because if the fish takes the point fly, for example, and you're playing it and you're retrieving it in, when it comes to net, having 10 foot of leader between your top dropper and your point fly, as well as the length of your body, will allow you enough space to be able to net that fish comfortably. And with that, you're going to look at some variation. So most people will fish bright fly on the top dropper and a dark fly on the point, on the premise that the fish might see the point fly first and might get spooked by it, but then see the more subtle, darker fly on the point and take that instead. And then in terms of flies and colours, you've got a few different options here. You can either go the bright way. So for example, the flies I've got here include a coral candy floss booby, a Brennig special, which is basically a cat's whisker booby but with a powder wing instead of white, or a St. Clement's booby. Now these would be good on their own if you're around fresh fish or if you're fishing this fly on a top dropper. But let's say for example it's day 4 of the new season, everybody's fishing boobies and the fish have switched off slightly. You're going to want something a bit more subtle, and you won't go far wrong with a very well tested pattern in this. A simple black booby with yellow eyes, or alternatively what I like to use is a Viva variant including some mosaic frits. Or failing both of those options, you can go the more nasty way. So big zonker style boobies like this, or boobies with plenty of flash in them that represent a fry of some sort. You've got to remember as well, at places like Farmore, Graffham, Rutland, these big minky boobies are a staple all year round, but particularly in winter they come into their own, even on smaller still waters. So now that we've talked about the gear and the flies, let's put this into a real life scenario and run through what you would do. So there's 2 retrieves that I think work best in winter. Stick it under your arm and roly-poly. It can be a fast roly-poly, it can be a steady roly-poly, or alternatively slow figure of 8. And the slow figure of 8, you have to keep the flies moving to avoid those fish deep hooking themselves, but just a steady figure of 8 like this is perfect. And what you'll find with that is that you'll have taps. As the booby is working its way closer to you, you'll just feel a little tap on the end of the rod and the line just pulling ever so slightly. Now it hasn't pulled enough that the fish is on because it hasn't hooked itself, but what's basically happening is the fish is behind the booby just nipping away at it. And all I would stress to you at that point is just keep steady with the retrieve. Don't try and set into the fish, because effectively what you've done is you've pulled the line, you've then got this slack line which you're trying to recover as you pull the rod down, and within that time the fish will have taken the fly and spat it back out. What you're best off doing is if the taps start happening, don't change anything. Just keep going and going, and eventually everything will just lock up. And don't forget to always hang your flies. You can add a hang marker to your fly line quite simply if you need it, but with heavy sinking lines and boobies, nowhere is the hang more effective. If you are an angler who enjoys the more natural approach to winter fishing, you might want to check out this video here I did about a month ago, which goes through the whole process. Alternatively, if you are into booby fishing and you want a booby to tie, have a look at this video here. And don't forget guys, if you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing. My name is Rhys. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.